Hello, my dear friends of good design, and welcome to another Illustrator challenge. My name is Julia Vaca, and I'm your host. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here, and I'm super excited to show you some cool tricks on gradients today in Adobe Illustrator. So, for all of you who are new here, as always, you can access the link to the starter file right in the description below. So if you click on the link, you can open the file inside Illustrator and work along with me. All right, let's get started. I don't want to hold back anymore to show you all the cool things that we're going to be doing today. And having the starter file open, this is what this is going to look like. I have prepared a little section here on the right for you to get some inspiration, to get some assets from. We have some useful shortcuts here at the bottom that I always use on a daily basis, and that is the selection and direct selection tool. Sorry, I think in this case they're the opposite. So the selection tool will be the letter V on your keyboard, and the direct selection tool will be the letter A on your keyboard. So here you can also access those at the top left. All right, so the top one is the selection tool, and the one underneath is the direct selection tool. And what you can do with those is, with the selection tool, you can select objects or groups of objects, and with the direct selection tool, you can access vector points. So that comes really handy when you work with vector shapes. Okay? All right, my friends, now today we're going to be working with gradients, and I'm super excited to show you a couple techniques of how I create gradients in Illustrator. And we're going to be applying that gradient to a logo, and you can either create your own logo, or you can select one of these logos here at the bottom of this intro page. So let's get started. And first, what I want to do is I'm going to create a rectangle. On the left side, I'm going to select the rectangle tool by clicking on it, but you can literally create any kind of shape. You can fill any shape with a gradient. Now we're going to create a rectangle, in this case a square, just because it's completely 100% proportionate. Okay, and that one we're going to kind of pull all across the artboard. And I'm going to remove the stroke just because we don't really need it. You can simply go onto the color of the stroke and select no color, or you can minimize the size of the stroke to 0. So now we have our colors here on the left side at the bottom, and we have the fill color and we have the outline color. So the fill color is the color with which the rectangle or the shape is filled, and the outline color is the color with which the shape is outlined, right? So in this case, working today, we want to make sure that we have the fill color selected, because we can also apply gradients to the outline, or they might not appear as an option. There are several options, and some of them work, some don't. But we want to work with fill color today, okay? So, and then another thing that I would like you to open is the properties panel. And if you don't see it here inside your Illustrator, let me actually push this a little bit so that we can fit the window. And yes, it's Friday, April 29th. Friday vibes are definitely kicking in. And my voice is also really, sounds a little tired and needs some rest for sure. Okay, so we have our rectangle selected, our properties panel active, and if you don't have the properties panel open, you can go to window and click on properties right here. Having the check mark in front of it means that it's activated, okay? So we have the properties panel, we have our rectangle, our square, right? And now we're going to use the gradient tool and explore a couple of options of what we can do with this. So, and the gradient tool you can find right here in your toolbar, right on the left side, or simply click the letter G. So I can click on my rectangle and click the letter G, and now I have my gradient options already open inside my properties panel, and I can start clicking right away, creating gradients. So what exactly is a gradient? A gradient is a transition between two colors. In this case, we have the color white right here on this end, and the color black on this end. And that's something, usually you'll get this by default black and white, so you can see the transition. Now, Now that we have applied this gradient to our rectangle square, we can double click into the colors and we can select colors from a spectrum, or we can color pick, for example. So I can color pick this lime green here that I have on the side. Now, on the left, I can also double click and I can select another color. And you can either select from the colors here in your in your panel, or you can even create your own colors, or you can eyedrop them. What I like to do is I like to create myself a color palette that I can color pick from. So let's create that. I'm going to create a couple rectangles, and I'm going to go to maybe you have a library with some inspirational colors or something, but I'm going to go to fill, and I'm going to see what colors I can get. And you can do that either going through your color settings, or you can go and select the color picker, which you can do by double clicking into the fill color. So here what I can do is I can move my color on a spectrum. And on the left side, the square is the color spectrum for the specific hue of this green, right? Now we can change the hue on the right side, and you can see we have so many different color tones, and each of these color tones has its own spectrum of color, going to the lightest, least saturated, to the lightest, most saturated, to the darkest, most saturated, and to the lightest, least saturated. We got it. Okay, so if I'm in the center, I'm in the perfect middle of brightness, darkness, and saturation. Now if I go to the top right, I go to the more saturated and bright color. If I go to the left, I go to the less saturated bright color, and so on, right? So the principle is clear. What we want to do is we want to keep on moving within the top bright tones today. So somewhere in this spectrum. And I'm simply going to pick this color from my first rectangle. Now I'm going to create a copy of this, and I'm in the selection tool, holding Option, clicking and dragging. Now I'm again going into the color picker, and I'm going to change the hue slightly to a different color, maybe to a more green color. All right, again, holding Option, clicking and dragging, creating a copy, double click into the color picker. Maybe we want to create another blue hue of this tone, right? So you can see the brightness stays approximately the same. There we go. And another copy, holding Option, clicking and dragging, double clicking into the fill color, maybe some nice peach tone, and you can feel free to move around and create your colors here. Same thing again, holding Option, clicking and dragging, creating another copy, and we're going to go and select the more saturated pink. And how would we survive without a nice purple? So let's create another copy, holding Option, clicking and dragging, and I'm going into the purple color palette here, something nice purpley like that, maybe even more bright. There we go. Actually, let's get this a little bit more purple. Let's move more into the blue direction, just like so. All right, cool. So we have a nice pastel color palette for our choices. Now let's get back to the gradient tool, and let's modify some of the gradient colors. And right now, here you can see there are 3 options for the gradient. One is the linear gradient that has 2 colors and transitions from one color to the other. You can also add multiple colors in between, right? So let's check that out. We're going from blue to the slime green. Once I'm moving on the under the line that transitions, I have sometimes this plus symbol appear, and if I click, I'm adding another color. And now I can simply use the eyedropper with the letter I on my keyboard, or just selecting the eyedropper from your menu here. You can sample some of these color tones, and so double clicking, right? Then use the eyedropper, and we're going to sample one of these color tones. There we go. So now we can see we added a third color to the mix that's located in the middle of these blue and light, yellow lime color. Now you can see that this orange tone occupies very little space and looks almost compressed. So what we can do is we can use these sliders to distribute the color differently. Now this is the middle between these two color tones, but sometimes a tone is really bright and saturated and needs a little bit more space to transition into the other color. And the same thing we can do here. We can give the orange a little bit more space to transition into the blue. Or we can simply add another color in between, maybe a green. So again, double clicking, using the eyedropper, selecting a green. Okay, so you can play around with it, what works best for your case. Another thing that's really cool is, once we have that selected, we can go in and add a gradient. And now, once we have the gradient selected, we can go in and pull this gradient in any other way, and in that way kind of experiment the location of the gradient. We can also go in and turn the gradient by going into this bottom point, right? And we have this rotation icon appear, and we can move around the gradient also by clicking on it and pulling it around. Now let's remove this gradient because we are going to be doing something way more exciting today. And I'm going to start with this green. And we are going to be working with a different type of gradient. So we have, as I said, the linear gradient. Then we have the radial gradient, which basically creates a center point and creates a circle. And around the circle, the color is being distributed. Or, and that's my favorite option, we have the freeform gradient. All right, the freeform gradient consists of multiple points that you can move around and that way distribute the color in a very flexible way. Okay, so we can move around and we can select colors. So I can double click on this one and maybe select a blue. All right, so we can do that. And here we have a white. Let's make that maybe a pink. Okay, let's keep that maybe purple, something like that. So the colors look like they somewhat belong together and there's not too much contrast. They're all in this very cold realm, right, of blue, purple, and pink. Okay, so this works really well for me. Now, how do we actually apply that to the logo? And by the way, you can add more points to this gradient if you want by simply clicking anywhere on this surface. And you can also move points away or delete them by clicking the delete button, or you can move them out of the shape. Those are the two options of removing the color point. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to lock this gradient by clicking Command and 2. Now we can't select it anymore. You can see it's locked in the background. And what we're going to do is we're going to create another rectangle, and of that rectangle we're going to cut out our logo so that basically through the letters of the logo you can see through into the gradient. And I like that option a lot because that way we can actually apply a smooth gradient that goes throughout the letters. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to pull in this Pure Box logo right now. It is locked, so we're going to click Command, Option, and 2. Now all of these objects are unlocked, and we've also unlocked our background by accident. So I'm going to go in and select it and Command and 2 and lock it. All right, now it's locked. We're placing our rectangle back. Now let's take our Pure Box logo. Right now it's in the background, so we right click, arrange, bring to front. Now our logo is in front of our white space here. We're holding Shift and clicking on one of the corners and dragging it to size it up, okay? And for this case, what you want to do is you want to use lettering that's pretty bold, right? And if you want to create your own logo and use it like this, you have to outline the letters. So an example really quickly. We have text, says hello. Let's make it a 200 size. All right. To be able to cut this out from this rectangle, we need to transfer the live text into outlines, into shapes, vector shapes, basically. For that, we're having the text selected, and we're going to Command Shift and O. Now we have transferred the letters into outlines, and we see that when we're using the letter A for our shortcut for the direct selection tool. Now these letters are simply vector shapes, and that's what we need in order to cut out our logo from this background. So what we're going to do next is we're going to select both, and our background is locked, right? So we're not selecting the background, just the two elements, the rectangle and the logo. And we're going to go into our Pathfinder, and we're going to click minus front. And now we have basically cut out the logo from this rectangle. Now these shapes that the letters occupied basically are cut into this shape, and you can see through them because this is where the cutouts are, kind of like windows that let us see through to the next layer. Okay, so Bruce is saying liking the blue. Yeah, same here. I love kind of using similar color tones in a gradient and creating a very soft gradient that doesn't have too much contrast in the color. Okay, so now we have this really cool rectangle, and you can see that the letters are cut out by simply dragging it around. You can see that through the letters now you can see all the stuff, all the things that are happening in the background. Now, of course, you can cut out other things from this rectangle. I don't know, maybe some brand shapes that you might have. So you can basically apply that to a whole, even a more complex logo. And now let's unlock all the objects with Command Option and 2. Now we have this background gradient also active. Now next what we're going to do is we're going to preview and play around with the background color. First, we're going to select this white box, click I on a keyboard for the eyedropper tool, sample the black color because I think a black color tone in this case will probably work better. And now I'm going to select it, click Command and 2 to lock, and now all I have unlocked is the background gradient. Now I'm going to be editing the gradient and previewing what the logo looks like with the gradient in it. Okay, so I'm going to select the box with a gradient, click Edit Gradient, and now I can move around the points and I can see how the color is being distributed within the logo. So I can even go in and add some of these color tones, and this gives a really nice preview of, you know, what will this look like in the end, and we can, you know, modify it and make it exactly how we want it. Now we can also, of course, work with more points, so we can go in and add another point if needed. So yeah, this is basically that, and it's super fun. And in the same way, you can also place images behind a logo or any kind of pattern or whatever you desire, and basically just cut out the logo out of this front rectangle and have basically the background texture or color shine through. Okay, isn't this super fun? I really love this technique, and I've been applying it a lot for my clients. And we can of course play around with this color still and see. Oops, of course we have it locked, so we have to go into Command Option and 2, select the first rectangle, which is in the front, right, which has the letters cut out, and then we're going to use the I on our keyboard and maybe experiment with some of these colors. Maybe you'll find another color work better, so feel free to experiment and find your perfect color for your logo. Okay, all right, please show how you did that cutout. I lost you for a second. Okay, another time, one more time. So we have a rectangle. Let's make it like this, and we're going to take a logo. In this case, we're going to take Craft Edge. We're going to pull it on top, right click, arrange, bring to front. The logo has to be in the front, otherwise you won't be able to cut it out. It's how you have the dough and the cookie cutter. It has to be on top, right? So whatever has to be cut out, the cookie cutter, it has to be located on top, so it's closest to you as you know you look at the computer. All right, so let's make that a color real quick. So right now nothing is cut out, right? We have the logo, we have the background. I'm going to select both, right? And I'm going into my Pathfinder, selecting the click minus front, click to minus front. All right, so I'm going to do that, and now I've cut out my logo through that rectangle. Now my rectangle is basically having this cut in of the logo. Okay, so that's how you do it. And the Pathfinder tool, if you don't find it here in the properties, you can also go into Window and activate the Pathfinder by clicking on it, and you'll get that window. I have it already here in my properties. So, okay. So now we can, of course, work with that gradient. We can experiment with that gradient. We can make some other cool shapes within it if we want to. All right. Okay. Let's see if we have any other friends asking questions. Okay. Yeah, feel free. We have the chat open. Feel free to ask the questions that you have. All right. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you. So let's say you have this cutout and you have the background. Let's actually lock this gradient for now, Command and 2. Now, you might think, hey, you know what? Now that I've cut in the logo, I'm not able to change it and adjust it anymore. That is not true. You can simply go into this rectangle, and these shapes that are cut in, you can still adjust them. You can still move them around. Oh, wow, this looks very interesting. Also something to experiment with for sure. But you can experiment with these things, right? You can go in, maybe make this B center a different color. I don't know. It's up to you. So you're not stuck with these vectors. You can still go in and move them around and yeah, experiment with your logo. Okay. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that these shapes are being treated as shapes that stand by themselves, right? So we have the circle, excuse me. We have this outline of the bee, right? Because it's not live text anymore. Illustrator is treating that as shapes now. All right, so this is that, and you can still go in and do something to the P by using the letter A as a shortcut for the direct selection tool. Select these 2 points. You can still modify, make some cool stuff with it. Maybe the same thing with a B. Boom. Yeah, so feel free to experiment with that, and I'm hoping this is fun. Now, to export this artwork, all you have to do is go to File, Export, Export As. In here, we want to click Use Artboards. And by the way, I've created one square artboard for you. So you can click onto the artboard tool or Shift+O, and you can see this is our artboard. So everything that you want to export, you might want to create another artboard around this artwork to export it as well, right? So you can go into File, and by the way, you can also reuse this this gradient Command Option and 2 to unlock it. We're going to copy paste it, and maybe we can even paste it under this other logo. Excuse me. All right, just like that. And those edges you won't be able to see just because the artboard is not covering them. So let's go and export these two. File, Export, Export As, Use Artboards, and we're going to export in PNG or JPEG, whatever you need. There are also multiple other options, SVG. SVG is a vector format, so all right, but SVG will be hard to export the gradients, so I would stick with a PNG or any image format. Export. Now the background color, I think transparent is fine, or we have it all filled in color anyway. Okay, so now I have these two exported to my computer, and I want to encourage you to look in the description below and find the link to our Discord community that you can go and check out. There you can submit your daily creative challenge, and you can, or not so daily, how many times you wanna, maybe you wanna do multiple challenges a day or just one in a week, it's up to you. But you can submit your challenges there under the challenge hashtag, And we have some amazing moderators that will help you, give you some feedback, and help you learn more cool tools and tricks. And also you will get notified about new challenges and what's going on otherwise in the community. So it's a great place if you want to learn design, and if you want to find a community of people who, also want to learn design. Check it out and come join us there. I'm also there. You can also message me there as well if you like, if you have any questions on the challenges. All right. Yes, please stick around. We have Howard Pinsky with the XD Masterclass coming up. So I wish you all an amazing Friday, and I will see you for the next Illustrator challenge. Bye-bye.